before
I've
as well.
always said first date, coffee date.
Coffee date.
Low stakes for both.
I think it's different for men. I think a simp, unfortunately, is a simp. And
A simp is a simp. Is that
that's
plain
the quote
and
of the
simple?
year, yeah.
And also, this just kind of makes me think, wait, so if you're basically telling me that you always choose toxic guys, does that mean I'm toxic? Yo guys, welcome back to another episode on my channel. I'm sitting in this spot, which means I've got a great conversation lined up for you today. You know, on this channel, we like to talk about all things dating and, talk about the things other people are afraid to talk about that can help us attract the kind of person and relationship that we want. So without further ado, please welcome Shristi to the show. Did I say that right?
You did. Thank you for
Shristi,
having me.
welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming last minute.
No worries.
Absolute last minute, all the way from Kent. How long did it take you to get here today?
Just over an hour. So it's not too bad. Yeah.
To be fair, London commute that's pretty standard, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah. So it's fine.
That's pretty standard. So I'd like to jump straight in.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us either your age or age range, because you never ask a lady her age. And tell us one thing someone should know about you, a guy should know about you if he wanted to take you out on a date.
Okay. My name is Shristi Jade. I'm 31 and I'm married, so I'm not on the dating market. Mm-hmm. But if I was, one thing a guy should know about me is that I'm not a feminist. I don't buy into any of those delusional lies.
Okay.
So it would not be a good idea to try and win me over with modern ideas of women, men, dating, and general other feminist lies.
Interesting. So it's interesting you lead with that. Mm-hmm. What do you, when you say about these kind of feminist lies and rhetoric, what is it in the dating world that you think maybe the feminist rhetoric is that you think doesn't, either that you don't like or doesn't help women, or do you know what I mean?
Yeah, sure. So a lot of the time nowadays we are told that women are queens, women need to be worshipped, women are goddesses, and that it's us that comes first in order for a relationship to thrive or for a man to be worthy of our time. I don't agree with that. I don't think that we deserve to be worshipped as such just off the bat for no good reason. And I think that a lot of women nowadays are very entitled to a certain type of treatment or a certain type of relationship or man, even though a lot of the time they're not bringing certain qualities to that relationship or, to a partner's life. And I also think that a man should lead a relationship. So if a woman is being worshipped, that puts her in a position of power, and therefore it's harder for him to lead when she's at the top. So I had this kind of debate with my friend the other day, and we were saying who should love the other person more in a relationship. Should the man love more or should the woman love more? And my friend's engaged, so she's in a steady relationship, and she insisted that it should be the woman. It should be the man. The man should love the most.
Love the woman more.
Yeah, she should be worshipped. She should be treated like a princess and a queen. And when I say, a woman, like when I'm talking about how a woman should be treated, I think a woman should be treated well. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is that when there's this over-the-top inflated sense of entitlement of what we should get in a relationship, that's when things take an ugly turn, I think. So I was saying to her, I think that the woman should love more, because then the man is in a position of power and he can lead. If he loves her more, she's up there and she's going to lead. The relationship is going to potentially be led by fluctuating emotions, maybe a lack of logic, potentially, and it's just going to lead into a ditch.
Interesting.
Yeah.
A lot to unpack there, so we're going to go through them. And I hear some of the points you're making. I definitely understand where a lot of those points come from. And I think a lot of those things that you said do play into reality. I do think, so if we start off with you said that you feel a lot of women are entitled to a certain treatment. Why do you think that is? Like, why do you have that opinion? What have you seen? What's been your experience that makes you think that women are expecting unfairly expecting more from men. Is that the case, you would say?
I would say so, yeah.
Right.
So there's multiple different ways that I've seen this. So personal relationships, like with friends, family, things like that, people that I've spoken with, and then online as well. So, you know, a lot of women will say they want a high value man, they want 6 figures, they want a guy that's over 6 foot, all of these requirements that are the super high standards when it comes to dating. So I've seen that from friends. Like, for example, in a real life situation, I've got a friend who's under 5 foot. She's like 4'9".
Wow,
she's a very short girl. She's cute, you know, she's short.
Yeah.
And I'm short too. I'm 5'4". I'm not short as her, but she insists upon having a man who's 6 foot or more. She says 6'3" is ideal.
Tall girls are gonna hate her, boy. Tall girls hate it when they see short girls with tall guys.
I say to her, I'm like, why do you need a 6'3" guy when you are 4'9"? Like, and she's like, because it, and I'm like, it makes no logical sense.
So here's the thing, I get what you're saying, but if that's what she likes, that's what she likes. Like, what's wrong with that?
It's okay. I get what you're saying. Like, she likes that. That's fine. But what it does is it puts her at a disadvantage. She's single. So she's going to discount loads of good guys who might be perfect partners to her, somebody who would take care of her, enhance her life. She's going to cut them all out without even getting to know them or getting to know why they would be a good partner.
It's true.
All because of a superficial trait, which genuinely means nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand, okay, she wants taller kids. She wants to give her kids a chance of being taller, but he doesn't need to be 6'3".
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of tall girls would definitely resonate with you in that sense. Being like, you know, you don't need an absolute tall guy, especially, you know, if tall girls are kind of losing out to the shorter ones, I guess. Yeah, it's interesting because you say there's a level of kind of entitlement and stuff. And I think what's currently happened in the dating landscape is women's standards have gotten higher for the kind of men that they want.
Yeah.
But their standards for how they're treated, I think, has gotten lower.
Okay.
So they've raised the kind of guy who qualifies, but the standards in how they to be treated is lower. Now, a single woman saying a guy has to do this, 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 and this, that's all good, her saying that. But when she's actually dating a guy that she is interested in, she cares about, right? A lot of the time she makes more compromises. But I think the reason she makes more compromises is because it's so difficult to find that kind of top percent guy. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of a catch-22 if a woman has raised her standards for the kind of man she wants, because it means you're more likely to tolerate things that maybe you shouldn't.
Yeah.
Equally so, the guy who's not 6'3", who maybe is 5'9", is the one who would actually give you the love and respect and, you know, have that reciprocal relationship that you want. So I would agree in saying that, you know, we see a lot of the time a lot of women express standards that are like crazy.
Yeah.
Or not crazy, it's just a very small percentage of men.
Exactly.
But then the irony is, when they actually get with those kinds of guys, they have very little, and it's not about power, but they have very little power and leverage in the relationship because he's one in a however many, because their standards are so high.
Exactly.
I want to talk about, you said you believe a man should lead.
Yep.
Nothing wrong with that, obviously. And, you know, with my own bias, you know, the way I kind of operate, I have always been the leader in my relationships as well. Do you think that not that women are incapable to lead a relationship, but do you think it could never work with a woman leading a relationship?
Yeah, I don't think it will work. I don't think it will ever work.
Interesting.
And I say that because I believe that, you know, we know that women are extremely emotional creatures. I myself am very emotional. So emotions fluctuate a lot. And so that's not necessarily a leadership quality, because you're all over the place, you know, depending on that time of the month or what's going on in your life. And I saw a quote I think it was last night, it was like a man needs to be a mountain to the woman's waves of the ocean.
Oh yeah,
or something
I actually
like
said that in one of my reels. I think as
maybe
well.
that's what it was. I was watching, some of your stuff.
Yeah, no, I said, a man's the mountain for a woman to crash her emotions.
Yeah, okay, it was
onto.
you.
Yeah.
I'm quoting
You're welcome.
you to yourself.
She's quoting me to me. Oh yeah, that guy.
Really
Whoever
good.
said that, he's fantastic. Whoever he is.
No, but I thought that was such a good, like, I love analogies and I love imagery. So
Sure.
that just made a lot of sense to me. So wouldn't it make more sense for the person who is more stable, who is the mountain, to lead the relationship and for the waves to kind of follow on? How are the waves going to lead the mountain? It's just not going to work.
So I completely agree, obviously.
Since you said it, yeah.
So I completely agree. What I would push back on is that you can get women who would be the mountain and you can get men who would be the waves. And because if you argue with that analogy, that's about the masculine and the feminine.
Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily mean the man and woman. Now, it may, obviously, it kind of more naturally happens. More women tend to have a more feminine core. More men tend to have a more masculine core. But it can happen the other way around. And I do think generally that's the exception. You know, I put my hands up to that. But I think it's important to acknowledge that, yes, it is an exception, but it does exist.
It does.
And I completely understand what you're saying in terms of women's fluctuating emotions, women are emotional. Men are emotional too. But
It's
I think how we handle emotions a lot of the time are quite different. Women tend to express. It's like they have their ball of emotions and they get their girlfriends and like, come figure this out with me. Do you know what I mean? Whereas guys were like, we're not sharing this with anyone until I know exactly what this is, why I feel this way, etc.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I think we just handle it differently. But maybe it's because of men's temperament, the masculine temperament towards ambition, direction, whereas the feminine temperament, I guess, is more empathy and compassion. Because there'll be some professions where actually being empathetic, being compassionate is actually what's required of that leader.
Yeah.
You know, so I think, like, for example, like leading a charity, for example, you know, I think the fact that it's a charity means you are empathetic to other people, you are compassionate to the people you're trying to help. And if your leader doesn't demonstrate those qualities to a high degree, I would say they're not right to lead that endeavor. Does that make sense?
It does. I see what you're saying. And I think I agree with what you said in terms of how men are emotional too. We're both emotional. But I think what makes a man a better leader is that the logic will be at the forefront behind the emotions. Just how you said, like, a man would kind of come in and say, okay, what's going on? What's the best way to handle this? With that emotion behind him. Whereas a woman would more likely have that at the forefront.
Yeah, I think that we do tend to see that.
Yeah.
What's something you'd like to ask or this conversation?
So what I would like to ask is, I've heard, and I believe it's Kevin Samuels that said this, that, and in the red pill community in general, but by 2030, the majority of women will be single and childless.
Yes, over 50% of women will be. Yeah.
You think that's true, or that's the statistic that you've heard?
Yeah, I've heard that because they're looking at the trajectory of the way things are going, and that is what it looks like. Yeah.
Which is scary, and I think, excuse me, it plays into what we were saying about the dating standards. Like, I was on a podcast last week and there was a girl on there, a 25-year-old girl was saying that she wouldn't go on a date with a guy unless he was paying at least £500 for the first date, some fancy restaurant. And it was,
good luck to her.
I know, she was so adamant. It was like, she was like, that's my standard, that's it. And then there was another girl on the podcast who was completely backing up. She's like, if that's your standard, that's you do you, this and that. And I was
not
like,
her friend.
I was just like,
why do you think that is? What do you think that is signifying? Like, where she's saying a guy has to essentially invest a certain amount of financial into spending time with me, because it's not about the money, it's about the level of investment, and the type of investment is the money, right? But why do you think she has that standard. What do you think that standard means to her?
I think that it comes down to, number one, there's a certain sense of entitlement, but then there's also a certain sense of delusion when it comes to materialism and money and how that actually plays into a relationship. Like, I was saying that I think coffee date is 100%. I've heard you say this before as well.
I've always said first date, coffee date.
Coffee date.
Low stakes for both.
Exactly.
You're not forced to sit across the table for someone for a couple of hours.
For ages.
Also, and this is the male perspective, I don't know if I want to invest in you.
Exactly. I
don't know you.
Exactly.
So
the podcast, I was on King Richard's podcast, and he said, he just put it down so simply. He was like, we're strangers. And I was like, that's so true. Like, I can say all these things about investment and it's so true, but if you just say basically, we're strangers, you don't know me, I don't know you.
Very true.
Do I really want to sit in front of a stranger? Like you said, and it's true, dinner can draw out for a long time. And you're sitting there thinking, I don't like this person. I'm not feeling this.
Well, I need to finish this salad because I've already ordered it.
Exactly. And they've got to wait for the main. And also I was trying to say to her, I was saying, don't you think that when you go on this dinner date and you're all dressed up and he's paid all this money, that he's not going to expect something from you? And does that not make you feel uncomfortable? Because you're 100%. Sitting there, like, you're sitting there thinking, crap. I mean, within her right, she can say no thanks and go home, and that's how it ends for him and her. But the pressure that it puts on everybody is unnecessary. It's a big waste of money. Like, if you think just of a normal average person in London, that could be someone's rent, £500 on a meal that you're going to feel hungry again in 3 hours.
How much do you think, because sometimes we hear this, excuse me, sometimes we hear this with, you know, you might hear women say, a guy has to spend this much on me on the first date, etc. How much of it do you think is a defense mechanism? Because maybe they've been involved with a guy who didn't step up to the plate that maybe they wanted him to, like didn't make them feel like they were taken care of, didn't provide a frame where she felt she could be vulnerable. So they've almost gone to the other extreme and been like, if a guy's going to be with me, he has to show from day one that he has got me.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does.
So how much of that do you think plays into a woman having that standard? Do you think it's quite high? Do you think it's like, nah, they just want a guy to spend loads of money on them and they feel entitled to it? Like, what do you think?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's probably a bit of both. I think, like, sometimes when women are acting out in that way or they're demanding all these things, it makes sense that they've been hurt. They're like, I'm not going to put up with anything less than what I think I deserve or what I want now. So I think it's both, because but I also think that it is delusional in terms of what society has told us, because just because a man spends £500 on you does not mean he's going to be a good partner, doesn't mean that he's going to be loyal, take care of you, protect and provide for you. He could, because if you're putting that amount of money on your time, I know this sounds really harsh, but it's almost like you're paying for my time. Like, what profession asks someone to pay for their time?
Wow, it's true.
Like,
it's very true.
Where are we going with this?
Yeah.
So I think that
it makes it almost seem very transactional. It
does. And why would you want a relationship to start off like that? Like, my husband and I, our first date was a coffee date, and you know, it was great, and we got along so well.
Smile. She's so lovey-dovey, right? She's so loved up by her hubby. That's cute.
Yeah, he's beautiful, and coffee date. We chatted for ages. It was just such a great vibe, and then it was like, okay, when will I see you again? And then you actually like each other as people.
Yes.
Whereas if you're like, obviously, I didn't get dressed up. I wore jeans, trainers. Now I think about this, I'm like, was that really the best? Anyway, I had jeans, trainers and a hoodie. Like, I wasn't all dolled up. I had my hair, makeup, whatever, always, but
of course.
I wasn't all dolled up. I just wanted to get to know him. He made me laugh. We had a great conversation. And then from there, we built our relationship and the trust from there. Yeah. And I think that it's sad because women think, oh yeah, like that, that girl, and maybe probably a lot of other girls would say, well, she said it herself. She said, at least if he buys me a £500 meal and we go to some fancy restaurant, at least I get something out of it if he pumps and dumps. And I was like,
that definitely comes from a place of trauma.
Yeah.
And
I was like, but you didn't get anything out of it. All you got was, if that's what happened, and hopefully it doesn't, but it probably would, is you just added a number. You got pumped and dumped. You're going to get hurt. You're going to feel more resentful towards men. And then you're going to come out and say all men are trash when this is a situation that unfortunately you've put yourself in.
And the irony is that the unflattering reality is that if a guy wants to take a girl out, she's like, a guy has to spend £500 on me. He may have been open to actually get to know her, take her seriously. But because she said that, he's like, well, actually, I'm just going to have fun with you and not take you seriously.
Exactly.
Because you think you're entitled to something and I'm going to show you. And guys can switch up in terms of, they can do that as almost to prove a point.
Yeah.
Because of this kind of standard that, oh, you think you're everything? Okay, I'm going to take you down a peg. When we're going to have sex, I'm going to block you.
Yeah.
And guys do that. Do you know what I mean? Just to try and bring her down a peg. So, okay.
So wait, you're so sorry to interrupt. So you're saying that guys would do that just to kind of show women that maybe like what you're saying is unrealistic. So I'm going to show you that you're.
Yeah. So it's kind of like if a woman expresses in a way that for guys comes across that she thinks she's all this just for you to spend time with her, then a guy can be like, okay, I'm going to do that, but I'm going to bring you down a peg. Because on first looks, he may be like, oh, she may seem cool, but she's come across as very entitled. And we know guys want to have sex. And we know that guys can have sex with girls that they don't like, as long as the girl is somewhat attractive. So it could be like, okay, I've established I don't like who you are because you come across as very entitled to me, but I still want to have sex, so I'm just going to use you. Yeah. And that's going to bring you down a peg.
Yeah.
And guys do that.
I think, it could be to bring them down. It could be. And I think also when a woman presents herself in that way, like, why would he see her as anything worth more? I think it's like, I don't know if it's always to bring her down. I think sometimes it's like, okay, if that's what you're presenting, then that's what you're going to get. Very true.
Very true. And maybe I'm saying a harsher version of that, but it's kind of like, if that's what you're presenting, that's what you're going to get.
Yeah.
So imagine your best friend.
Yeah.
And let's say she has dealt with guys who haven't stepped up to the plate before. So she is a little bit traumatized from that. And she's now got this standard. And it's a way to try and protect herself.
Yeah.
Right. And all essentially she's doing is she's approaching dating in a different way because the way she's done it hasn't worked for her. But obviously this way, I think we both agree, is probably going to be quite unhelpful as well. So if that was your best friend and she's at that point.
Yeah.
What would you say to her to kind of help her get to where she wants to be?
I would say stop dating, get some therapy, start thinking about what part you are playing in this. And this is the thing, like with women, it's hard because, and I myself play into this sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, maybe So
we love the honesty.
Excuse me. Sometimes it's hard to hear the truth. So my husband is really harsh with me. He does tough love to me all the time. He tells me how it is, and I don't like it. But and I will sometimes get defensive, or I'll be like, I'll get defensive. But afterwards, I'm like, okay, you're right, or explain to me more what you mean and try and see it from his point of view. And so what I'm trying to say is when it comes to speaking to women, you're going to have to be careful, because I've done this before. I've been honest with friends who've maybe been in a similar situation, and I've lost the friendship because they're like, who do you think you are? Why are you telling me this? I can't, just because you're in a relationship or everything's perfect for you, you think you can tell me, things like that. So it's hard to be honest with women sometimes, and that is to our detriment, because if someone can't be honest with you, then how are you going to be better? So, but regardless of that, say she didn't dump me as a friend and not want to speak with me anymore. Yeah. I would say get therapy, figure out, because if you're having all these failed relationships, then the common denominator is you. True. And it could be that, number one, you need help, or number two, there's something going on that you need some you need to go through some healing. And then 3, it could be the men that you're choosing as well, because we have a choice when we find men, when we let men into our lives. You know, people want to speak about exceptions, like, oh, well, what about when men do this and when men do that? At the majority of the time, we are saying, yeah, I'll go on the date with you. Yeah, you can come over. Yeah, I'll come over.
Yeah.
Or whatever it is. So we are adults and we have a choice.
100%. Yeah. That was so funny. I had a session with one of my clients this week, and something like that came up, being like, oh, but he guided the conversation to being a sexual one, and then we ended up having a sexual conversation, and that led into something else. I'm like, yeah, but it takes 2 to tango. Yeah. Like, he can't have a sexual conversation if you are not reciprocating, like, because the conversation takes 2 to talk.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's funny that. It is very true. I think how you say things to women in general sometimes matters more than the actual point. Whereas guys, we're very much the opposite.
Yeah.
We're like, I don't care how harsh it is, just tell me how it is.
Yeah.
If I'm sucking at something, whatever, tell me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But I do think, if we're establishing that women in general can be have a more emotional waves compared to men, I think men should make an effort to communicate in a way to his partner. Yes, he's direct, but to try and say it in a way that is considerate of how she might feel. Yeah. Because I think that's a way that a man will love a woman. Do you know what I mean? To be considerate. In other ways, there'll be other ways where women will show love to men. And it's what works for you. There's some couples who they can just be direct. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And if that works for them, that's great. Yeah. But I think as a premise for guys, I think it's always better to go on the side of, okay, I'm going to tell her the truth, but I'm going to try and communicate it in a way that at least seems like I'm being considerate of how she feels. Yeah. Because if someone's defensive, you could be saying that the sun goes up and down and they'll still disagree with you because they're defensive. Do you know what I mean?
Can I speak on that point?
Yeah, please,
actually?
Always.
So I watched a video yesterday. So Kevin Samuels was, telling the truth to women about relationships, dating standards, what we need to be doing to be a good partner, all that type of thing. And everyone used to say to him, you're too harsh. We hate the way that you're saying things. You hate women. You hate black women. You hate women in general. Like, everybody had that view of him. And then Kendra G, do you know Kendra G?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So her and Kevin Samuels had a conversation like this. She was completely defensive. She's single. So she was just like, no, women need to be independent. She was pushing back against him. Then 3 years later, I think quite recently, she came out and pretty much said the exact same thing that Kevin said. Yeah. In a nicer way, and the women reacted the exact same way. So
I think what's happened there though is within the media, the narrative of our media has catered towards women and how they feel so much that even the truth sounds harsh. So I think you're right, and because depending where someone is at in their mindset, if the truth is harsh, it doesn't matter how you say it, they're going to reject it. Yeah. And that means that they're not ready to receive the truth. And until they get to a point where they realize that what they're doing isn't working for them and they start looking for answers, that's going to force them to have to be able to listen and take something on board, even if it's something that they don't like. So I think there's a balance. There's the just saying it cold truth or whatever, and then there's not saying anything because they're going to be defensive. I think there's a middle, which is you are being direct and you are saying the truth, but that is considerate. Because, if we take like Kendra G, where 3 years ago, she clearly wasn't in a place where she could listen to the truth and take that on board, but she would have had a transition. And when she's got to that point where she can take it, it's funny because everyone says Kevin Samuels was quite harsh, but to us guys, he was like, that's how we communicate. Yeah. We're just very direct. Like, we don't see it as harsh. Yeah. Like, if a guy's like, if boys are going out and he's wearing a shirt, it's like, hey, how does this look? It's like, bruh, you look like dog shit, go change.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like the button's about to burst, it's too small. I get you're trying to show off your muscles or whatever, but nah, you look like you're trying too hard.
Yeah.
You can't just say that to women.
No,
God forbid.
You would, forget it.
God forbid.
Forget
I guess
it.
the way you could say it to women would be, I heard someone say this. She'd be like, the dress is nice, but I think this dress is actually going to suit you way better.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You would be like, I think, you'd be more flat. No, not you'd be more. You'd look better in that other dress that you got the other day.
This dress is more flattering for you.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're saying the same thing.
Same thing, yeah.
We're saying like, this isn't it, that's it. But the way we do it is, and it's funny, even with guys, even communicating very harshly, that's how guys bond.
Yeah.
A lot of the time. We'll take the piss out of each other.
Mm-hmm. We just don't do that.
I know. That's so funny. There was something I want to ask you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. So you were talking about, your relationship and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And, you said that your husband's direct, sometimes don't like it, but you sit on it and reflect, which everyone should do. Both partners should.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think are, a few compromises you've had to make for the happiness of your relationship and the success of your relationship and marriage?
What compromises have I had to make?
Yeah, that you feel like you've had to make, maybe that you feel like you have to make because, we make compromises to make the relationship succeed. Mm-hmm. So what compromises would you say you've had to make?
That's a good question. I think definitely, as I mentioned, being open to constructive criticism.
Sure.
I guess I never, I don't want to say I never, but I rarely received constructive criticism growing up. It was more of, it was the two extremes. Like maybe my mum would just be like, don't worry about it, sweetie, it's fine. You did your best, don't worry. And then dad would just be like, what the hell? Or, whatever it was, or the other way around, depending on what was going on.
What was going
on. Usually mum was more trying to, maybe coddle my emotions or my feelings.
Sure.
But, so that's one thing I've really had to work on. And sometimes, like, I think at the start of the relationship, I was just not used to that. Like, I was not used to a man coming to me and saying, look, this is my standard. This is what I'm going to need you to do. This is what I expect from you. This is what is important to me. I wasn't used to that. So it was a shock. It was a rude awakening and a shock, but it built the foundation of our relationship because he came saying, look, this is what I need. So either, respect it or it's not going to work. And, the things that he was asking for, they were all fine. It was not unreasonable. It was completely reasonable. And so I really had to work on, and I'm still working on it. I'm not perfect and I probably will always have to work on it. But yeah, really trying to take on board constructive criticism, hearing things that I don't want to hear. Because the thing is, I know that when he gives me feedback or when he wants me to improve on something about myself, it's for the relationship, but it's for me too. Like if there's something I need to fix, it's going to help my life and it's going to help our life and his life as well. Because
sorry to interrupt. So on that, because I can definitely see and imagine a lot of women saying what I'm about to ask. What is the balance between him giving constructive criticism that is to help you both?
Yeah.
And then him being almost controlling in a way because he's only caring about what he needs and he's maybe not considering about what he needs. How do you determine that balance for you in your relationship?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think what I always try and consider is, like, I think there's a big difference between criticism and constructive criticism. So I try and look at it as in, is what he is saying true? Like, is something that he's pointing out that I've done or that I'm doing, is it true? Because a lot of the time it would just be like, say, for example, somebody just insults you, like, I don't know, you're overweight or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, is that true? Am I actually overweight? Could I be more fit or whatever? Or is it like, he's never said this to me, but like, I noticed that you're not taking care of your fitness and maybe you're getting some knee pain or some back pain. I really want you to take care of yourself so that, we can go to the gym together. Like,
yeah.
So I always try and look at it, and is it fair? Is it true? That's the main thing, because how can something be controlling, or how can a man or a woman be controlling if they're pointing out something that's true?
That's a good point.
That could improve your life.
That's a good point.
Like, if I'm not doing something, or if I'm letting something happen in my life with a friendship or something like that, where somebody else from the outside can see, hey, I'm kind of noticing this dynamic. Maybe you're not noticing it because you're in that relationship and you've been with that friend for 20 years or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Do you think maybe this is something you can consider? And then I'll think about it. Yeah, that's actually true. And I feel a certain way after I've spent time with that person, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So that's really what it comes down to. Like, a person can't be controlling, or a situation can't be controlling if what they're saying is true.
Yeah. I think what you said hit the nail on the head. If it's fair and if it's true, then it's probably coming from a place of good faith.
Yeah.
A lot of the time. Was your husband the first person to be kind of, you kind of said, to be direct, be like, these are my standards. This is what I expect of myself. This is what I expect from you. And you're like, at first you were like, it was a shock.
Yeah.
Right. But obviously you're here and you're together and you're married and you're happily married and you have a great relationship. So, because a lot of girls might have walked away at that point.
Yeah.
So what kept you going, and what was that transition? How was that transition for you? Why did you stay and continue to invest in him, especially with that shock kind of upfront?
So that's a great question. I saw so many good qualities in him. Like, from the first time I met him, I could see he was very strong, very masculine, very, like, a great leader, but also very fair. Like, I could see it in all of his life situations. He's very fair. He always gives you a chance. He always sees the best in people. He's cautious of things, but he sees the best. So for me, he had all of the qualities that I wanted.
Yes.
And so that was what kind of kept our relationship going, because he and I truly are like a yin and yang. He's very masculine. I'm very feminine. We fit very well together. So we had that foundation first.
Yes.
We also formed a friendship first. So we had that foundation of actually knowing each other, liking each other, enjoying spending time together.
Yeah.
So, like, the building blocks were all there for me. Like, I'm like, okay, this is a good person. I actually enjoy spending time with him. We're friends. We get along. We have things in common. And then with that leadership quality, I could see that he had my best interests at heart, and also the way that his life was and the way he was conducting himself. I saw him as an inspiration. I saw him as someone who had the qualities that I would like to have more as well. So I saw all of those qualities. I'm like, I'm not letting that go. No way, I'm not letting that go. Just because of my ego, or because I get hurt by something, or, my feelings are hurt for a bit. But at the end of the day, I've changed so much because of him. I've improved so much. I'm a different person for the better because of him. So that's why I respect him. I think that's the most important thing. I respect him.
Yeah. It's so, and of course I'm going to say this because I'm a guy, but it's so beautiful to see someone in a happy relationship talk about their journey, his journey as well. And also just speak so well of their man, and just speak like, he's great and he's helped me with this, and we're continuously working together. And it's, as a guy, and I obviously have a guy's perspective, but we really don't see that a lot, and guys don't see that a lot, which is a big reason why Andrew Tate is so big because he's kind of been the only kind of public figure as a man who has kind of said, no man, you have a responsibility, but there's great things about you, and what you have in you are tools to be used for a level of purpose and meaning. So, because so many girls be like, I can't believe guys like Andrew Tate, or he's a role model. Why is he such a big role model? And, I don't agree with everything he says. Some of it is preference. I'll be like, that's not for me, or, etc. But I think Andrew Tate is almost a reflection of the failure in our media to promote the good things that men do and that men are capable of.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because if the media were doing that, then I don't think he would be as big, and there wouldn't be such a gap for boys to go, because if we go like, what's a good role model?
Yeah.
you know, like people want, and there's nothing wrong with it, but they want people like Will Smith to be their role model. And he's a role model in terms of his acting career, but in terms of his relationship and the kind of man he is, everyone loves him, but not everyone respects him.
Exactly.
And men don't want to be that guy. And then the other role model is, you know, guys, I don't know, something like maybe like Harry Styles. Do you know what I mean? And, you know, he's an incredible artist, role model as an artist, but, you know, he's out here wearing dresses, doing his thing, and that's fine for him. But most guys, that's not what they aspire to be.
Yeah.
And then you see Andrew Tate, and he's got the women that he wants, he's got the money, he's got the status, all of this stuff. It's like, well, it's almost like, and I actually saw him say this, it's almost like part of the reason so many boys listen to him is because he demonstrates a lot of the things that men want. So then that's almost like his credibility. And then if, you know, his messages are powerful, and that just hits home with a lot of young men.
Yeah. No, I agree with what you're saying. And I think that a lot of the time with men, it's like you said, it's one extreme or the other. It's like Will Smith, who people maybe don't respect. Yeah. And then on the other end is Andrew Tate, who is like an extreme guy.
Yes.
And I don't know if you've heard about this, but there's like well, you probably have heard about the beta male and the alpha male.
Of course.
And then there's like a sigma male who's in the middle. Have you heard about sigma male?
Yeah, so sigma is kind of, I've heard sigma is like the alpha, but more antisocial.
Yeah.
So he's kind of a lone wolf, essentially.
Exactly. Well, I mean, when you said antisocial, it's more like they have that lone wolf quality, and they enjoy being alone, but they also like being social. But it's just depending on where they're at and how they're feeling, if they want to. And once they've had enough, they're just going to go home.
Yeah,
they don't care about how people feel.
Yeah.
But I think that's one thing that Emmanuel, my husband, is. He's right in the middle. He's that perfect balance. Like, he's strong, he's masculine, but he's also caring, considerate, all of those things. But it's right in the middle. And I think, like, when I speak to my friends, you know, maybe a single friend or something like that who's looking for a man, she's like, it's always one extreme or the other. I'll go on a date with a guy and he'll talk about himself the whole date or whatever it is, or trying to be showing off to me with how much money he has or his car or whatever. Or there'll be a guy that's, you know, so nervous that he can't even speak to me. Yeah.
Why do you think that's happened? Why do you think that's their experience?
In dating, like, for example, my friend, or why are men like that?
Well, I guess both. Like,
yeah.
Why do you think dating now, it seems like you have that guy who's maybe got a lot of those attractive male qualities, it ticks those metrics, but it's all about him, blah, 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 blah. And then the guy who's like, I can't even say hi to her because she's looking at me.
And she's so beautiful, and she's a goddess. Yeah.
Why do you think that's happened?
I think that there's definitely a lack of masculinity in our community, in society in general.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of men are brought up by single mums. They don't have, or maybe the dad's in the home, but they don't have that masculine presence in their life. Nobody's taught them how to be a man. A woman cannot teach a boy how to be a man.
Very true.
It just doesn't work that way. I mean, I think a single dad who's raising a daughter, that daughter is still going to have maybe those feminine qualities and maybe be a little bit more logical or whatever it is.
Yes, yeah, that's true. That tends to happen.
Yeah, but with the boys, no, I don't think so. And then I think also, you know, so many men are told by society, by movies and the news and all of these, just social media, everything, that you have to cater to a woman, you have to treat her like a princess, worshipping women as well. Like, I think also porn has played a huge part in that as well, worshipping women, having it be that men don't have a concrete image of what a woman really is. They put her on a pedestal, and women say that they want that. They don't want that. Women don't. They don't. Like,
they really don't.
They don't want that. And as soon as you put a woman on a pedestal, she's not going to respect you.
Nope.
So don't, like, for all of your male listeners that are watching, don't listen to what women say. Listen to what they do. Look at their actions.
It's so true. And I think one of the main reasons, this just came to me now, one of the main reasons it seems like there are guys in the dating market who tick all the metrics, but it seems they're very arrogant and confident and about themselves, and the guys who can barely talk to women, is because there is such a polarized dynamic in the dating market of the only way I can say it is like celebrities and fans. And what I mean is, if you have a girl who has loads of guys falling, like chasing after her, all those guys are her fans.
Yeah.
So it becomes all about her. When you have a guy, right, because we know a very small percentage of guys get the opportunity with the majority of women, right? The stat that everyone quotes is, 80% of women want the top 20% guy. If you get that top 20% guy that plenty of women want, he's a celebrity and they're all his fans.
Yeah, that's so true.
Whenever you are the celebrity in a dynamic, you become selfish because it's all about you.
Yeah, so true.
Because everyone is making it about you, right? So I think that's why there's such polarized, like you've got the guy who's all this and the guy who's all that. And it's because the beta guy, he only has the dynamic and opportunities to be a fan.
Yeah.
Because most women just treat him as a fan. And the guy that every girl wants, because there's so few of him, she is a fan to him. And this even more plays into why girls have a higher standard for which guys qualify, but actually the treatment they're willing to tolerate from that guy has gotten lower because there's so few of him, because he will treat her like a fan.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I love that analogy. I think that makes so much sense. And it's like, when a woman is worshipped by that fan guy, she's like, I can do better because
100%.
He's worshipping me. So obviously I'm amazing. So see you later. And then goes on to the next best thing. And that's the hypergamy thing that comes through.
Yeah.
And then, when the man is the celeb, I think that makes sense. And I think that, again, it comes down to what I was saying before about how there needs to be, if the man's at the top and is more of the celebrity, then he's going to be able to lead things. I think that makes more sense. I think like there has to be the respect, of course. Like you said, I know that.
Of course.
It's like, it's funny, people will say, oh yeah, I had a toxic ex and and it's like, oh, how long were you with him? Oh, 5 years. It's like, oh my gosh,
how are you with him for so long?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then I guess it comes down to this thing again of like, well, he was the celebrity and she was the fan. And then women out of hurt will say, well, I want to be the celebrity now. But then they don't respect the fan because they're like, oh yeah, him.
100%. 100%. It's so funny because when you do take those examples where they're saying about a toxic ex, but they were with him. And I've found this in women I've worked with and talked to. I'm like, okay, when did you start seeing these toxic behaviors? And they're like, maybe like second year in, which is when people tend to relax a bit more.
Yeah.
And so whatever. I'm like, but you were with him for 5 years.
Yeah.
Like, what happened? And it's like, and this doesn't permit any toxic behavior, of course. But it's like, even though he may have been toxic, she still had massive respect for him.
Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of time keeps them.
Yeah.
Because, if she loves you as a fan, she doesn't respect you, then she's not going to choose you.
Yeah, that's true.
That's the way it is.
It's true. I was going to say something, but I forgot now. Anyway, go
that's
on.
All right. No, that was it. Do you have another question or something you want to talk about or bring up?
I did have a few...
Yeah, go for it.
Things. What would you say the red flags are to look out for in women?
So a guy dating women, the red flags to look out for?
Yeah.
Well, depends on the kind of woman you want, but we are talking generalized. Well, if she's cheated before, massive red flag. Just nah. For men, sexual fidelity is one of the most important things.
Yeah.
Men are very harsh with those kind of standards. Any whisper of cheating is a big red flag. This is counterintuitive because men will readily indulge in this. If she has sex with you the first time that she meets you, because guys will willingly take that, but if you're looking for long term, guys like to choose women who are sexually selective, again, because it leads to sexual fidelity and loyalty.
Yeah.
I would say, this is a red flag. I've debated a couple of people on this. For me, it's if she doesn't offer to pay on the first date.
Okay.
Or if she doesn't offer to contribute.
Yeah.
Because, and maybe this is my own personal preference, but like King said, we're strangers. I don't owe you anything. You don't owe me anything. Yes, I had a great time. Now, the way I am, I will pay. But whether she gives the gesture or not tells me the kind of woman that she is.
Yeah.
Is she someone who appreciates the investment that I make and the efforts that I make? Or is she the kind of woman who expects that because I'm a man and she's a woman? Even if you do expect it, still make the offer, because the offer is a sign of appreciation.
Yeah.
And appreciation and gratitude is the fuel for a man's service to a woman.
Yeah.
When she thanks him for the things that he does, that makes him want to do more.
It's true.
You don't give that, he's not going to want to do it for you.
Yeah.
And I'll give one more. If she says that half her exes are toxic,
Yeah. So true.
it's kind of like you said, like the common denominator is you.
Yeah.
And also, this just kind of makes me think, wait, so if you're basically telling me that you always choose toxic guys, does that mean I'm toxic? Do I need to sort myself out? Like, why am I here? Do you know what I mean?
Or are you the nice guy that she's settling for?
That's it, right? You could be the nice guy that she's settling for.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'd say. What about you? What would you say are some red flags that women should look for in men?
Yeah, I thought you might turn it around.
Oh, I have to. We have to do it. We have to do that, don't we?
I personally think when a man is really flashy and showy, I don't like that, personally.
What does that tell you about him?
It just tells me that he's trying to overcompensate for something that's missing. Or he thinks that, and I mean, maybe he might think this because he just doesn't know me, but he thinks I'm the kind of woman that's going to be impressed and taken away by something that honestly doesn't mean a lot to me.
On a surface level, yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Obviously, we all need money in this world, but if you're going to be flashing things at me in that sense, I and that's one thing with Andrew Tate that I think, like, like you said, I don't agree with everything he says. I don't agree with everything he does.
Yeah.
I do like a lot of what he says, and I think that he's helping men in a lot of ways, and I think that the more toxic things that he says are publicized more. But if you listen, like I've listened to like a long form interview with him, and I'm like, this guy's speaking so much truth, so much sense.
Yeah.
He's being fair a lot of the time. But
he really holds men accountable.
He does.
Like,
yeah.
he's like, if you don't have this, guys, it's your fault.
Go and get
like,
it.
It's on you.
Do better. Yeah, exactly.
Like, he's not like, oh, women are trash, whatever. Like, he really holds men to a standard.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
And that's helpful to men. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So when he's like, these are all my Bugattis, like this is that, and I'm like, I just cringe. I'm like,
what color's your Bugatti?
Yeah. I'm like, oh no, sorry, I just can't.
No, 100%.
Because like, for example, I know that when people have money, they're not talking about how much money they have. They're not showing off with what their watch, what brand their watch is or what brand their clothes are. They're not doing that.
You don't need to.
You don't need to. So when people are doing that, I'm like, are you really wealthy? Like, are you really on top of everything if this is how you're acting? I don't buy into that. So
true.
For me, I think that's a red flag.
Nice.
I think, I don't know. I think cheating, obviously. I mean,
of course.
It's just the lying and the sneaking and the betrayal of the trust, I think, is something that is a red flag, because you want to be able to trust your partner if you're going to be with them.
Yeah.
What else?
Or if he doesn't pay for the date.
If he doesn't pay for the date, yeah.
Is that a red flag? Or is that an amber flag? Not red, but amber.
I don't know, because I'm so out of that thing now. Like, Of course. I mean, Emmanuel and I have been together 6 years, so we've been together a long time.
Yeah.
But if I was, I don't know, I'm in that red pill community now, so I'm like, I don't know, if he didn't pay, how would I feel about it? Would I be like, I don't know.
It's because of the way I've been raised, and maybe I am. Like, if I had a daughter, she went out with a guy, and she offered to pay, and he was like, okay, cool. I'm like, no.
No, sorry.
Absolutely not. Not him.
It's just, I think.
Or like my sisters as well. Like,
I'd be like, no. What was that?
I'd be like, first date and he let you pay? Especially if you paid for him. God forbid. I'd find it myself. I'd be like, what are you doing? Letting my sister pay for you.
What if she asked him out?
Okay, this is what I would say. If you are planning to be the leader in the relationship as the woman, then fine.
Then you pay.
My son will never be that though. It's not.
I agree.
Nah.
It's a complete no. Yeah, no, I think no. My answer is I would want him to pay.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't pay, yeah, maybe that would be a red flag. But I would always offer, like you said, even if you just, you get your bag and you're like, oh, but 1 sec.
Oh, wow, my purse is so deep in this.
Yeah,
I need to find it.
At least, give it, pretend to try and pay.
Yes. One more red flag.
Okay. I think a lack of masculinity is a red flag to me.
What does that look like on a first date?
A guy who lacks confidence, a guy who can't make eye contact, who maybe I get that he's putting me up on a pedestal. Yeah, I get that. I would be like, because I like that leadership quality. I want a masculine man.
Yes.
I need you to show me that. I mean, it doesn't have to be extravagant. It's like an innate way of being that you just
it's the dynamic, isn't it?
It's the dynamic, exactly.
I understand that.
Yeah.
There's one thing I want to ask you.
Yep.
So maybe a lot of girls who maybe in your social circles, and maybe you've had this, I'd be surprised if you hadn't. Mm-hmm. But they might be like, oh, she's a pick-me girl.
Okay, yeah.
Right? So what is a pick-me girl, and do you think it's good, bad? Like, what's your opinion on a pick-me girl, and how do you take that?
I've heard that. I've heard that, and I've seen that a lot on TikTok. And I think that there's two things I want to say. The first thing is that I feel like it's a way of shaming women who know what they want and who are doing what they can to find the man that they want. I feel like it's a shaming tactic, because nowadays women would be like, oh, okay, well, I don't care if he calls me back. I'm a bad bitch. I can sleep with as many guys as I want. I don't get attached. Yeah. I can pay for myself. I'm independent, all this and that. So that's the opposite of being a pick-me, isn't it? And that's what women think is good in society now, or that's what's going to protect you or get you a good man or whatever. Yeah. So I just think it's a shaming tactic, because I've seen and I follow like women online who are like traditional wives or homemakers. Like I love that kind of content. And those are the women who will get called pick-me's, but they're the ones that are married or who have a stable relationship, because they...
Results tell all.
Exactly.
Results tell all.
They went out there and they listened. What do men want? What do men value? Okay, let me work on that. And the other side of that is don't just pretend to be something that you're not.
Exactly.
And be inauthentic, because that's also then going to show, and the cracks are going to show eventually. It's not who you are. Yeah. Men will see through that as well. But I think this whole pick me thing, I think mainly it's a shaming tactic, because we all want to be picked. No woman wants to be single. All this trash about I'm single by choice. No, you're not. If you had your man in front of you if you had a man in front of you that you liked and that you wanted and you thought it would be a good partner, you would want to have that partner.
You would take him. No
woman wants to go to an empty house, a cold bed, nobody to cook for. Like I saw this woman online, and it's sad, and this is not to shame her, but she throws these beautiful dinner parties, and she has like this beautiful dinner table with flowers and dinner sets and everything. And I followed her because I was like, I would like to, have a nice dinner party one day or whatever. Yeah. And then I realized, and she mentioned that she's single, she lives alone. Sometimes she sets the table just to have a beautiful table for a family, but she doesn't have a family, she's single.
Right, wow.
And
it's a little bit heartbreaking, actually. I can't even lie.
It's really sad. Yeah, because she's a beautiful woman. She has a beautiful home. She's obviously feminine in the way of she loves cooking and making things look beautiful and things like that, which is our quality as women. We have that nurturing way of being and wanting to decorate and make things beautiful. So, and in a way, she's like, well, I'm going to do it anyway. Even if I don't have a family, I'm going to set the table and I'm going to have my friends over when they're all free. And if that's how it has to be, that's how it has to be. But that's sad. Yeah. No, I don't think any woman wants that.
No. And do you know what? Men don't want to be alone either.
Yeah, that's true.
Like most young boys have always envisioned themselves marrying a woman that he loves, has a great relationship, having respect. Like, we're social creatures. Mm-hmm. I think as a whole, men are better being alone than women.
I agree.
Because I think women are more social than men in general. I agree. I think anytime you know, anytime I see a woman saying, oh, when a woman is bragging in pride in being single and everything she can do, there's nothing wrong with if you're enjoying that. But I always ask the question, why do you feel the need to brag about it? Because it always feels like you have something to prove, like to prove I'm okay not being in a relationship.
Yeah.
And you could be okay being in a relationship. You know, sometimes you've not met the right person for you, and that's fine. But when it seems like you're promoting and almost encouraging it as if for other people to do what you're doing, well, if what you're doing isn't actually making you happy, then I don't understand why you're trying to encourage it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I have to ask the other side because, you know, we're very fair on this channel.
Yeah.
What would you say about simps then? Do you think it's the same? Do you think men use the term simp to shame men who are kind of just trying to be what maybe women want? Or
that's a good question. I think it's different for men.
I think it's different for men, but I want to hear what you think first.
I think it's different for men. I think a simp, unfortunately, is a simp. And
a simp is a simp. Is that
that's
plain
the quote
and simple?
of the year, yeah. So I think that unfortunately that is a term that is true for men in the way that being like that doesn't benefit them. They're not going to win at the end of the day. And it is sad. Don't get me wrong. Like, I don't think if you feel that you're a simp or you've been told that you're a simp, like, look at what's going on in your life and how you can improve. I don't think that it has to be like a life sentence where it's just like, well, I'm a simp.
Every guy, no, I'm going to say this. Every guy has been a simp for a girl before.
Yeah.
Every guy has
It's
at some
true.
point, especially now, because how I would define a simp, one, it's a guy who is investing in a woman who is not reciprocating in him. That's what a simp is.
Yeah.
If you're investing in a woman, she's reciprocating in you, that's fine. It's like, I don't think a guy can be a simp for his woman if she respects him. Because if he's like, oh, I'm doing this for my woman, I'm celebrating my woman, then it's like, but he's with her and she's choosing him. They're together, right? So it's reciprocated. But it's when they're giving to a girl and she's not giving anything back and he continues, that's simp behavior.
Yeah.
But I think a simp is when, this kind of goes back to what we said.
Yeah.
A guy is doing the things that women say that they want instead of being the things that her actions are showing to actually choose.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of the time some women can say things because it sounds good to say, it sounds nice to say.
Yeah.
Even when it's not true. Or even when they believe it's not true. Like I saw this, who said this? I saw a tweet the other day and it's like so many, you know, a lot of women would be like, oh, Lizzo is beautiful and she's sexy and everything like that. And that's cool, you can think that. But then don't be insulted if I say, oh yeah, you look like Lizzo.
Yeah, because you would be.
Don't be insulted.
Yeah.
If you're insulted, then you clearly don't believe what you're saying because you would take that as a compliment.
That's
Michael
so
B. Jordan, successful, good looking, in great shape man. If someone calls me Michael B. Jordan, that's a compliment.
Yeah.
I'm not going to take that as an insult, but if you're out here saying Lizzo's gorgeous, sexy, and someone called you Lizzo as an insult, you're lying.
You don't really believe it, yeah.
You don't believe it.
It's true, yeah.
So why are you lying? Do you know what I mean? But yeah, that's what I'd say. A simp is, I think, following what she says, not her actions.
Yeah. Yeah, and putting her on a pedestal and also thinking that if you cater to all of her needs in a way where there's a lack of respect, like, for example, I know somebody who he owns his own apartment. Sorry, his parents own an apartment that he's been living in with his girlfriend. His girlfriend decided she would prefer a share house vibe, you know, a bit more social, having other people to chat to in the kitchen. She convinced him to move out of his house to go and live in the share house with her. And none of his friends had the audacity or the confidence to be like, bro, what the fuck?
Yeah.
But he thinks if he caters to what she wants and what she thinks is right for the relationship, he will keep her, but you're going to lose respect.
She's going to lose respect for you, and then it's just a matter of time. And the first sign and I see this all the time, and this might hit some nerves because some people might be in these relationships. The first sign that a woman doesn't respect the man that she's with is that they don't have sex. It is almost always because she doesn't respect him. And I've seen this so many times. A perfect example of where girlfriend, boyfriend, he moved in with her into her house that she was renting.
Okay.
And it's funny because she was renting the house with 2 other people, and he wanted to get a PlayStation for the house. She was like, not in my house.
Oh no. Yeah, this
And
is
I was
why
like, she doesn't respect you. And then it was a mutual friend telling me about this person, because the mutual friend is someone who lives in the house. And I was like, I bet you they've not had sex for a long time. She was like, how did you know? I was like,
that's true. I think, it makes sense. And I think that for a man, never move into a woman's house.
nope.
Never. If you're not on the lease, if you're not a co-owner or a co-signer on the mortgage or whatever it is, never do it.
I had this conversation with a friend of mine last year, and some women might hate me for this, but I don't care. I think it's true. Him and his girlfriend were thinking of buying together. And I was like, oh, is this going to be your first property? Your first? And he was like, yeah. I was like, nah, man, you should wait a few years and buy your own and then move her in. Because of that exact dynamic.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because the thing is, truth is, even when he paid for the house, sometimes it's still her house.
She's like, this is,
Do you know what I mean?
That's true.
And I'll be honest, I kind of did that too. Like, as in, there was a point where I could have bought with a girlfriend. I was like, nah.
I'm gonna buy it myself.
And then we ended up breaking up a year later, and then I bought this place the year after that.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's about a thing of a guy almost providing frame. And I think women just respect that. Do you know what I mean?
That's true.
But yeah, listen, we could chat for ages. You've been such a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
By the way, Shristi is a singer-songwriter. So plug in your Insta. Where can people find you and check your stuff out?
Yeah, sure. So you can find my music on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Music. You can follow me on Instagram and YouTube as well. My name's Shristi Jade, which is SHRISTIJADE. I also have, I've got my YouTube channel where I react to red pill content as well. I've got a Twitch channel too where I game too. I like playing video games.
She got it.
So I'm playing Last of Us at the moment. I love like story mode
Part 1 or 2?
games. 1.
Part 1.
Yeah.
I'm so jealous.
You haven't? Why?
No, I've played. I'm so jealous. Is it the first time you're playing it?
Yep.
Okay, I'm jealous because I know the journey you're going to go through, and it's going to be awesome.
Okay. Because, Emmanuel, my husband, he's a gamer, so he got me into gaming.
Legend.
And so all of the like story mode games, I never understood how amazing gaming was before I got into the stories. Like, and you're controlling the story sometimes, like in different. It's so good. So I've got my gaming channel, and then I've also got another Twitch channel where I react to red pill content and also react to music, and that's Shristi's World. So SHRISTISWRLD. And the gaming channel is SJ_Rose. So
perfect.
You can follow me
Guys,
there.
you've got plenty of stuff to go check her out. So please go check her out. Show us some love. From me to you to her, show us some love. She's been a great guest. Thank you so much for coming
Thanks
on.
for having
We
me.
appreciate your energy. Thank you for tuning in, guys, and I will see you in the next episode.